All right, Mike. First thing I want you to do, I want you to tell me your name, your age, the date, and where we are.
That's good, because I don't say the 9th.
Tell me your name first.
It's Michael Allen Schatz.
Okay.
I'm 55 years old, and we're at New Testament Baptist Church in Sullivan, Missouri, and I believe it's February the 9th.
Yeah, I believe you're right. Yeah.
2014.
Okay, so like I said, this is just a conversation between me and you. So I've known you for a long time, and as a matter of fact, I can't remember how long we've known each other, to be honest with you. I'm Damon Gilbert, by the way. I'm the one doing the interview.
We've known each other at least since high school, because you went to public school.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask you.
I went to Catholic school for two years, during my 7th and 8th grade year. Oh. When we moved out here, when my family moved out here from St. Louis, the only people, I didn't know anybody out here kid-wise, so Mom and Dad put us in St. Anthony's Catholic School for me for 2 years. I guess my brother for a little bit longer than that, because he's a couple years younger. But
okay, so see, that's starting to make sense to me, because when I was talking about doing this, or I mean when I was going through my head, I thought, man, I don't remember Mike from grade school.
Yeah.
And I thought I'm gonna make sure I ask him about that. So the first time I remember actually talking to you for any length of time was at tryouts for freshman basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I remember around the parking lot, you and I were talking about, and that's the first time I remember actually, having any kind of a conversation with you.
I was lousy at basketball. I didn't make it.
Yeah, but I do remember that. And prior to that, I couldn't remember anything. So I wanted to make sure I asked you that.
No, that was the reason. My dad's family has been from Sullivan, the Spring Bluff area where I'm at now, and my mom was, from St. Louis, so Dad worked at Fabic Tractor Company when they were still located down around St. Louis, and so I grew up. I was born and raised in St. Louis until into my 6th grade year, and then I started 7th grade I believe at St. Anthony's. Yeah.
Okay. So where'd your mom live at in St. Louis?
I really don't know. My earliest memories were, we lived on a street called Arco. It's off of Tower Grove in Manchester, and you have these childhood memories. We went down there a few years ago. We took Alex down for a doctor's appointment down at Children's, and it was raining, and we went down in the old neighborhood, and I expected to see what I remembered to be this huge house, and it was just a small. It was. That's exactly what it was. A small Cracker Jack thing, and the whole neighborhood it changed. We had, I remember even back then the neighborhood was getting rough. The people were transitioning there, and we just had some. It was just going downhill, at that particular time in St. Louis, and we moved. There was 2 houses, 4316 and 4318 Arco, and one of them belonged to my mom and dad, the other belonged to my grandma, and we sold ours, moved in with grandma for a while the house was being built, and sold hers and moved out here.
Oh, and, okay. All right.
Then I lived out here in the service road next to Jurgen's Trailer Court. That's where our mom and dad built a house.
So you built a house there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, your mom and dad built a house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking about your grandparents, do you remember anything about either set?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
On my dad's side was Richard Schatz, and then my grandma's name was May. I don't recall her maiden name. We have at home I've got a book that my Uncle Jim had put together and about our entire family dating back to like 1853 when they came over from Baden or Baden, Germany. I think it's Baden. But that's originally where my family migrated from, or immigrated from. And Grandpa, we weren't very close to Grandma and Grandpa Schatz. Dad came from a family of 16 kids. And
16?
Yeah. There were 16 of them. I was counting. I think there was like 5 sisters, and the rest were all boys, I think.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Yeah, I do well to remember my aunts and uncles and first cousins. After that, forget it. Forget it. Yeah. So it was a huge family, and there was such an age difference in between them, because Grandpa had been married before, and now my grandma May was the one who was the mother of most of those kids, you know. But you know, there's, you know, we were closer to some aunts and uncles than we were to others, but I remember going out there as a kid, and you know, Grandpa's farmhouse wasn't too far from the Spring Bluff store, and we go out there and we play in the barns, and I think he had like truck beds or something that were out there. I don't know if we stored stuff in them, but we would play in that stuff and play in the barns and things like that. And I remember being out there in the wintertime with snow all over the ground, having snowball fights with my cousins. We built these snow forts and stuff, and in the summer, you know, if we were out there, sometimes we'd walk up 185 to the Spring Bluff store and get a soda and stuff like that.
That's a long time ago, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I go by there once in a while. Think about that. That store used to be there. We used to do the same thing. Well, is that how you got down to Sullivan? Is that how your dad picked Sullivan?
Mm-hmm.
Is it
mm-hmm.
because of your
because of a family history out here? Mm-hmm.
Amador. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you can trace your family back all the way to what, Germany?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Amador.
Mm-hmm. On Dad's side, yeah.
So you grew up in St. Louis until what? You were in 7th grade?
Well, I ended my 6th grade year in St. Louis, and then we moved out here, and I started 7th grade here at St. Anthony's.
So how far back can you remember when you were a kid? You remember anything about St. Louis?
Oh, yeah.
Do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I remember a lot of that stuff. Well, you know, when we first, my fondest memories are, it was kind of, you know, back before the neighborhood started going bad. It was almost like a Leave It to Beaver neighborhood at the time, you know. There were some people that lived next door to us. They had a son. His name was Wade, but we always called him Wadey. And you know, he and I always played and stuff. You know, 'cause you know, back then you never really went out of your backyard. My mom was very protective of my brother and I, and so we always played. You know, Wadey was right across the fence. You know, and again, it seemed like a huge yard, but looking back, it's, you know, probably only like 30 feet across. But you know, it was. I have very fond memories of it. I remember, you know, they had a ice cream truck, like I think it's called Mr. Softy or something like that. When you hear the bell ringing, you know, the truck would be coming down the street. You run in, hit your parents up for money, and you'd run out and you know, get an ice cream. That was something really special. Mm-hmm. And they had Mr. and Mrs. King, the couple that we knew that lived across the street. They moved out of St. Louis before we did, and like Wade Turnbow was his name. That was his last name. And I don't remember when they moved, but I remember, you know, I had some friends, Donnie Hewlin, Susan Kameen, Elizabeth Black, you know, just a few people I remember from school. My closest friend at the time in St. Louis was a boy by the name of David Fleming. He had a younger sister named Nancy. David and I were the same age, and my brother Mark and Nancy were the same age. Our moms were good friends, and you know, they were so protective that they walked us to school. Mom, I'm trying to think of what David and Nancy's mother's name was. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
How far was that?
It seemed like an eternity, but it's not that far. It's probably only about 3 or 4 blocks, you know. But we'd go. Mom would walk us to school, and you know, sometimes we'd eat, you know, stay there at school. We'd always pack, you know, lunches, or even if we came home for lunch, she'd come up and get us, walk us back home, and then walk us back. And it was a 2-family deal. I mean, Mickey Fleming was her name.
That was definitely Leave It to Beaver stuff.
Yeah,
but
my mom Virginia and Mickey would walk all 4. You know, they walk all 4 kids to school, and I remember there was some little candy store on the way. You used to get those little dots that were on the paper and stuff, and we get that. And you know, the school was it's still standing, and they still go to school there. But it too, you know, when I drove past it, it's like, wow, it shrunk. It's not near as big as what I thought. But we had, you know, I had some teachers there that were, you know, memorable. I still remember my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Wooten. Yeah, Wooten, W-O-O-T-E-N. And then one of my favorites was a black teacher that I had named Celeste Knox. I think she actually tried talking my mom and dad into letting me stay there and finish out elementary school in St. Louis.
Really?
Yeah, it was totally different. I got, you know, I got very good grades and stuff, and while I was going to school in the city, and I was actually, if I recall correctly, I was actually slated to skip a grade because my grades were that good. What happened after I got out of here, I don't know, because that never happened again.
Resounding
yeah,
story for the public school system.
exactly. But no, it was a great time, and I can't remember the principal's name, but I remember going on, we go on short field trips with him, and he wore a touring cap and an overcoat, and I remember he just like we'd walk. We didn't take buses, so we walked to these places and stuff, and it was neat. It was pretty cool. It was a real cool school at the time.
So that's a school day. What you guys doing during the summer?
Well,
first of all, it was you and your brother, right?
Me and my brother.
Yeah.
And I have an older sister,
yeah.
Linda, who is like 12 years older than I am. But I remember Linda, growing up with her and things, and it seemed like it seems like she got married awful soon and stuff, and so she wasn't around, but she actually worked at Fabic Tractor Company where Dad worked for a time, and she lives out here in Sullivan, and so does my brother Mark, and so everybody just kind of migrated out here and stayed, but.
Give me for instance, during the summer. I mean, I understand you're leaving to Beaver during the school year, but what'd you guys do during the summer, you and your brother? I mean,
well, like I said, Mom was very protective, and there was we basically just played in our yard. Right. Sometimes we were in the front yard. A lot of times we spent more time in the backyard than anything. I remember we had a mimosa tree there, and when I got a little older, well, not much older, but we played with GI Joes and stuff, climbing the trees, and of course I had GI Joe with the parachute and throw him off and he'd go crashing. That's why his little arm is still bandaged to this day, But we just played in the backyard. We rode bikes and stuff, and Dad, I remember for a while there we had one of those big round stock tanks, that Mom and Dad had bought, and we used that as a swimming pool, and G.I. Joe went swimming and everything else, but we spent a lot of time just playing in the backyard, and we had a couple of dogs. We had a Boston Bull Terrier and a Border Collie, and they were just real great memories. I got I was thinking about this interview thing, and one of the things I got to thinking about is when Mark and I were younger, we had costumes were big with kids back then. So we each had a costume. His was a Batman costume, and mine was Superman. And I think I wore that thing until it started coming up to about here on me. But it was kind of funny. We was on the back porch. You had these concrete steps that went down to the yard and stuff, and I'd always, of course, fly off of that. I'd, jump off, because I'll never forget it. I'm on the sleeve of this suit, and they even had disclaimers back then. It said, "This suit will not make you fly. Remember, only Superman can fly." And I'm thinking, well, that's kind of a ripoff, I have the cape and everything else, I just can't fly. But we had a great time. I mean, it was a very protected childhood, So like I said, I can't ever recall going to anybody's house back then.
Oh, you never stayed over at anybody's house? Or?
No, never that I can recall. And there was a boy that lived down not too far from there. His name was James Marsters. And James was kind of an odd kid. I mean, more very nerdy and stuff. But I always liked James. He gave me a seahorse, a dried seahorse one time, and I had that thing forever. And I always wondered what happened to some of those guys. Like James, and Donnie Hewlin was another one that comes to mind. And I don't know. Like I said, the school we went to was getting kind of rough. When I remember it, and it was to the point where a lot of times my brother and I wouldn't even go outside at recess. It was that bad.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Is that one of the reasons your mom and dad moved?
Yeah.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And but there were some, like I said, there were some very good times. We had the alley that went behind the house back there, and Dad had brought home he had bought a go-kart from somebody, and it had a single seat. It was all metal, and it had pop rivets that were held the metal part onto the frame. And I remember Dad went to a lot of trouble to change all that stuff out. He took the seat off and made this nice bench seat, so it could seat two, because it was wide. It was wide enough to seat two. And I don't know if it was a maiden voyage, because I don't remember too much after this. But I remember
the ambulance ride?
almost. We had went to we had got this thing. We took it out in the alley, because you obviously can't ride in the street. So we were out in the alley and fired this thing up, and my brother was driving. And I remember we go flying down the alley. Well, you get down towards the other end of the street, and there's a white chap parking lot right there, and there was a beauty parlor. And the people used to park there, and then they go in through the back door in this beauty parlor. And I remember Mark flying down this thing and just kind of whips the steering wheel. Well, the bench seat was really nice, but there was no seat belts. And when your body's going this way and the go-kart goes this way, guess where your body goes? So I remember sliding across that parking lot on my butt, and so that's the last go-kart experience I really remember. I mean, we used to have the thing when we came to Sullivan, and I used to, like I said, we lived by Juergen's Trailer Court, and we drove it all over the trailer court.
Oh, you still had it?
Oh, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving from St. Louis, were you sad to come out here when you were a kid? Do you remember? Or
I wouldn't say sad. I was just just different, because you're going into a place where you don't really know anybody. Like I said, my cousin Bridget was the only one that was in grade school out here that I knew at St. Anthony's, but at least to give you a foot in the door. I remember walking in and other than one or two people that weren't interested in sports, I was the tallest person in 7th grade. Next guy close to me was Mark Gerber, and I was about a half-inch taller than him. And I was a non-Catholic, but my parents paid the tuition, so I went to parochial school for 2 years. But I remember a bunch of the girls came up and were asking Sister Anthony Marie. She was a 7th and 8th grade teacher, because the 7th and 8th grade were combined. And they were wanting to know if I could play basketball on the basketball team, because I was so tall, And, now, I don't know if I know some of these guys like Tom Todd and Ted Sieberman, who are all taller than I am now, but those were some of our star players and stuff, and Mark Gerber was one. He was good. He was our center. But I was lousy at basketball. I mean, I was absolutely horrible, in St. Louis, I never touched a basketball. Right. I didn't know what a basketball was. Never threw a football, so my dad, I love my dad dearly, but Dad always worked. I mean, in his era, they left the house at 16, 17 years old, and most of them went out on, most of them joined the military, but they always worked, and I don't recall ever. I really don't ever recall playing catch or anything like that with my dad. So I never had some of those experiences, and I tried to in my life tried to be better by my kids, but I found myself doing the same thing a lot. When you get in law enforcement, you find right now is the only time in my life, this last 13 months of my life, is probably the only time since I've been married I've never worked a part-time job. Because law enforcement never, didn't pay all that well, so you were always trying to pick up something, either doing security for somebody on the side, or the last things I used to do were I used to teach in law enforcement academies and stuff.
I remember you saying that.
So, but that's what I look at now. I just wish I would have spent more time with my kids as they were growing up, and I did more than what I had, and I think I turned out all right. Sure. It's just that you just always want to do better for your kids. So
it's a different era.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's like you said. I did the same thing. Grew up in that kind of a Leave It to Beaver thing.
Yeah.
And Dad worked, and it was just the way it was.
Yeah.
Mom was home. I was figured she always was.
Yeah.
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 Nowadays it doesn't work that way. So
yeah.
I mean, I think I've turned out to be a better grandfather than I have. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, when you started at Sullivan High School, you knew Catholic kids, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but you didn't know anybody else, so.
I didn't. Well, actually, I did know a few, but it was through basketball, you know, and that's how I became acquainted with guys like John Maroney and Kent Renshaw, because you know they played in the same basketball group that we played in, because he went to Anaconda, and so we played all the smaller schools and stuff like that, you know, and I remember.
See, that makes sense now.
Yeah, and that's how. So yeah, I knew those guys, and we, you know, and we just, you know, John and I have known each other since 7th grade. You know, now back then it was St. Anthony, and it was the St. Anthony Rebels, not the Saints like they are today. St. Anthony Rebels. We wore white with red shorts and trim and stuff, but you know, Anaconda was kind of like our arch enemies, but you know.
Yeah. So you played basketball. Did you play any baseball?
No.
You didn't play baseball?
No baseball.
Because I know when we were a freshman, when we met out of that parking lot, I remember, you know, you said you weren't much of a sports guy at the time, but I mean, when you were, because everybody was trying out. I mean, I remember there was like 50 kids there, so.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you played any Little League or anything.
No, like I said, basketball at St. Anthony's was my first real involvement with sports, you know.
Well, so you were class of 77 with me. Let's see. Did you work when you were in high school?
No.
You didn't?
No.
You didn't work until you got out? Yeah, what was your first job?
Well, no, wait a minute, let me back up on that. I did. I actually worked at Merrimack Caverns when I was 16.
Oh, you were a guide?
No, no, I didn't get that lucky. No, actually, I was a stock boy, so I took care of. I mean, it wasn't the most fun job, but there's a little metal. There used to be a little metal shed kind of on the back of the building, and that's where they stored a lot of the stuff. And they didn't even have the label maker thing. They give you a sheet with stickers on it, and you take a T-shirt from this box, put a price tag on it, and put it in this box. Oh yeah, it was a very exciting job. And then if they got busy with the customers and tourists, then you put on this. It was a hideous looking sky blue smock, and then you'd have to go out there and stand at a cash register. And
I think they still wear those.
I don't know. I didn't see them the last time I was down there, because I mentioned that to Judy Torelli a while back. I said I just hated those smocks, but and you couldn't lean on the counter. You had to stand there, and or the manager that was around there would come around and go, "Smile." So you had to get used to showing teeth. So, but it was my whole life has changed. I was quite the introvert. You know, I mean, from what I was back growing up in St. Louis, and even coming out here to Sullivan, to what I do now, you know, is just totally opposite.
So as a kid, you would have never seen yourself getting up in front of a group of people.
No.
Or being a politician, giving speeches.
No,
never seen
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Wasn't like it was your life ambition or anything.
No.
So what was your life ambition as a kid or as a growing up? What did you want to be?
At the risk of, well, I didn't know. At the risk of, when in high school, I just taught construction because I hung around a lot of guys that were leaning towards that. But I always just, I know it sounds kind of cliche, but I always wanted to help people, but I never was big in the sciences, so the medical thing was out of my league. But I went to East Central for a couple of years and went to work for Mueller Surveying and
I remember that.
Worked for him, Ewing Mueller, and I worked with his son Mark a lot, and then I got hired. I was wanting something a little bit, better, and I went to work for the state highway department when they had an office building in Kirkwood, and I worked on there I was trying to get on as a survey crewman, and got hired as a computer draftsman. Go figure. Know nothing about computers, and but it was neat. I mean, I did have I had drafting in college, because I took it was, I guess, the equivalence of a building trades class at East Central, and I was doing that, and then the state started laying off workers it was back when Teasdale was governor, and they started laying off, so they called a bunch of us in and said, you have a choice. We can lay you off or you can transfer somewhere else in the system. So as it turned out, there was an opening at the Bourbon Highway Shed. It paid $35 a month more, and I was only 7 miles from Sullivan, so that was great. You know, no more driving back and forth to St. Louis. And but that was one of those jobs. You know, it's not a bad job, but it wasn't for me.
You did a lot of mowing, didn't you?
I did a lot of mowing,
Yeah.
and you know, I plowed snow for, you know, with them, and did a lot of just standing there with the sign, you know, slow, stop, and made for a very long day, especially when you're out on Highway N out of Bourbon and there's nobody around.
Right.
You know, everybody else is down the road working, and you're standing there going, because there's nothing else to do. But you know, and it got into my head that again, I always just wanted to be able to help in some way. And so back in the day when you and I and Mike and Scott and everybody used to ride motorcycles, when you and I had our wreck.
Right. Yeah.
When you and I had a wreck in Doc's front yard, you broke your thumb, I broke my finger.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we came around the front, bam, hit head on, 2 motorcycles. So you broke your thumb, I broke my finger, and they wouldn't let me work at the time with the broken finger. So I was, you know, on sick leave or whatever they called it, and I decided I was going to put my application in. And I thought I wanted to try my hand at law enforcement, so I put an application at Sullivan and interviewed with the chief there, and I put my application at the Sheriff's Department, interviewed there, and I got hired on at the Sheriff's Department in 1981. I worked for a man by the name of Andy Sawicki, an old gruff boxer, and when he was at a loss for words, he would throw up the word "whatsum." Go over there and get that "whatsum," and you know, and it was funny. He's a good man, a very good man. But you know, after I worked in the jail for him for 18 months, and I figured after I knew, when he started saying something and I knew what a "whatsum" was without him having to explain it further, I figured it's time for me to move on.
Do something else.
But I aspired, you know, to get on the road, you know, and when I started, they could hire you right off the street, you know, and so they sent me to the Highway Patrol Academy. It was a 3-week academy at the time, and I did that, and you know, again, my biggest thing, you know, was I never broke into houses or anything like that. I mean, you know, our biggest thing back when we were in school was maybe some underage drinking, which is bad. You know, it's bad enough, but that's what it was. But now I found myself working in a jail with people my age, and some that are a lot older, you know, who are in there for rape, murder, burglary, stealing, auto theft, you name it. I mean, I came in contact with them, so it was a whole big culture environment. I'm glad I had that experience, because I think it got me primed for transitioning to the road, because I worked in the jail for 18 months and then got transferred to the road, and it gave you a better sense of the people you're going to be dealing with out there, because not everybody is just nice, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another side, but and you learn to deal with them on their own level. You know, and in a way, there was a certain amount of mutual respect. I never, you know, I was disrespected a lot, you know, because I obviously was, in my position, was interfering with their life. But for the most part, it was, you got what you gave out, you know. So I had a fairly successful career, I thought, you know.
Did you ever pull your gun?
Yes.
You did? Mm-hmm. Did you ever use it?
No.
Never used it?
No. And that's why I tell people when I taught classes, I said, you know, you train, you know, 95% of what law enforcement does is with the mouth. They talk, you know, and talk through things. But, you know, I was very proficient with firearms, both rifles and pistols, shotguns. But those were the things you had to be ready for. You were in the wrong job if you think you cure everything with your mouth. There was times where you just had to. But I never, you know, by the grace of God, I never had to pull my gun and use it, and I'm very thankful for that. You know, I got into I was in martial arts back at East Central from '77 to '79, and then got involved later on in my law enforcement career in defense tactics, and I started doing that because even when I left the academy, they taught you some basic stuff, but it wasn't enough. I didn't feel comfortable, so I got heavily involved in martial arts and defense tactics, and I became a defense tactics instructor, and I taught that for years at the Sheriff's Office, Missouri Police Corps, the Missouri Sheriff's Training Academy,
Really?
Mineral Area College Law Enforcement Academy. Yeah, I've taught a lot, you know, and you know, I still maintain some contacts with some of my older students and stuff like that, and it was a neat experience.
So you taught defense. I mean, not karate, not it was strictly hand-to-hand combat, the down and dirty stuff.
Yeah,
right?
it was. Well, it wasn't so. I wouldn't use the term dirty, but it was all combat oriented. And you know, my goal was to teach people to survive and win those confrontations, because law enforcement didn't get paid to lose.
Right.
You know, we were never under any obligation to retreat. So you go in and you have to take care of things. You know, and I can honestly say I never mistreated anybody. You know, you hear all these. Well, I don't know if you remember this, but I think you and I were at a hockey game back at the old Checkerdome one time, and some guy was doing something across the rink from us, and I remember about 3 or 4 St. Louis City cops, and all I seen was blue and nightsticks, thunk, 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 you know, and it's like that was never what I was about. I never pulled a baton on anybody. Now I made, you know, I pepper sprayed a few people, tased one guy, but that was it. You know, most of my stuff was all either hands-on, and nobody got hurt.
I remember that guy, and he was sitting there doing nothing. He was sitting in the middle row, and
Yeah.
he came down.
Both sides, yeah, exactly. And like I said, all you seen is elbows and batons. It was like thumpity, 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 thump, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, that was never my perception of law enforcement, how I thought law enforcement should be. Now, I grew up in a different area, you know, that where those guys worked was probably rougher, and they were used to dealing with people a lot different. But that was never my thing, you know. I always wanted to help people. I mean, even if I had somebody in handcuffs in the back of my car, if I could, you know, somehow help them work through their thing, you know. I mean, because life's too short for some of that stuff. And
Did you have contact with people in other places like St. Louis County and all that? I mean, did you guys compare notes? Was it a little more laid back out here, or?
you know, well, it depends what your definition of laid back. Because out here, you know, as a road deputy, you worked in everything from a mailbox vandalism to a homicide. You know, where in your municipalities and your larger cities, most of what they would call road cops, they would go to a scene, secure it, and then call in the detectives. They never worked the whole investigation.
There were different levels, different departments.
Yeah, well, they had more tiers. We didn't. Out here with Franklin County, you learned to be an investigator. You know, so you would sometimes follow a case from beginning to end, whereas down there you hand it off. You go take the initial report and you're done. Go on.
How long have you done that?
I did it for 31 and a half years.
31 and a half years.
Yeah.
Hats off to you. And then you made the transition. How did you come about becoming a politician, basically? What brought that up?
Well,
how did that come along?
you know, I've been at the sheriff's office so long, and I felt, well, there's people over there. The majority of them, 99.9% are very good. There's a couple that were in places higher than me that I just didn't really care for, and I couldn't do it any longer.
You're talking about in the sheriff's department itself?
In the sheriff's department itself,
gotcha.
yeah. I just had a supervisor that nobody really cared for over there. I'm not going to mention his name, but I would have stayed had I not won. But you know, I'd been there long enough. You know, with our retirement system, we had a thing called the Rule of 80. When your years of service and your age equal to 80, you retire. Well, I've made that. You know, and I stayed there about a year and a half longer. But with this individual, I'm thinking, can't do this anymore. And, you know, I'm going to run. You know, I've been around the past commissioners and worked with some of the commissioners on different things, and I'm thinking I can do this job. I can do it. I have no doubt in my mind I can do it. So I thought I'll run, And I told my wife, I said, I'm not going to, you know, one person, the first guy, Grover Wilson, gave me a campaign contribution. He said, don't use your own money. He said, just don't do it, you know. And everybody's telling me, oh, you got to have all this money to win. And I told Christina, I said, you know, I'm just going to run, what we get, we get. You know what, if I don't make it, I don't make it. I still got my job with the Sheriff's Department. So for me, it was a win-win. Mm-hmm. I'm not retired.
Nothing to lose.
Yeah, I don't draw retirement now because I'm a county commissioner, but this, you know, I get paid more, so this will enhance my retirement when I do eventually retire. But
and you can do this indefinitely, right?
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it's one of those things. So I went into it. You know, I gave it my best shot, and I had a 5-way primary with Gary Young, Jerry Landine, Mark Falloon, and Ted Dees. And from the get-go, everybody told me it was between me and Gary Young. Gary's a nice guy. I met him. We used to, every time we'd go to a function, we'd spend more time talking. And Christina, when we go somewhere, I'd say, oh, I'm going to go talk to Gary. She goes, oh, you're going to go see your BFF? And, you know, best friend forever. But he was a nice guy. Everybody ran a clean campaign. There was no mudslinging. You didn't have to do that stuff. And I was worried because he had a campaign office and all this other stuff, and I don't know how much money he had raised. I never really paid any attention. I ran a very close to the vest grassroots campaign. I went to people I knew that I wrote letters to you know, some of my friends asking for campaign contributions. One piece of advice I got from Mike Copeland, who ran against Gary Tulkey for sheriff back in the 80s. He said when he ran, he wouldn't accept money from anybody who he thought might expect something. And that's who I got every dime from. You know, there's people that go to this church that contributed to my campaign. You know, John contributed to my campaign. They don't ask me for nothing. You know? Right. Mm-hmm. So that was good. I went in with a clear conscience. You know, when I won the primary, of course, I don't discount anything. Strange things happen. But when I won the primary, I just had the general, and I've run against a lady by the name of Teresa Connolly, and I thought I could beat her. I didn't think that she was going to be much of a challenge, and she's a nice person, but she's just got some different ideas. Mm-hmm. But I won, and as it turned out, you know, I had raised for my, you know, the guys that were in the first district, I know, were running that race. One guy that lost had spent over $20,000. You know, I don't know what Tim Brinker, my fellow commissioner, I don't know what he spent. I never have asked him. I raised about $7,000 and won my campaign, and they told me you couldn't be done for that. Really? Yeah. Well, Terry Wilson, who ran, he lost his bid for re-election, and I said, he asked me, he said, how much or I asked him, I said, how much you think you really need? He goes, oh, probably at least 10, 12,000. And I said, well, I'm not gonna, there's no way I'm gonna have that much, you know. And I told my wife, I said, we'll go as far as the money takes us, and if we get it, we get it. If not, I'll still get my job at the sheriff's office. And so, you know, I ran, and like I said, it was right. It was close. Mine not even been 7,000. Mine have been 6,900. But I didn't even spend all of that. I turned around, and you know, after I won, I knew I had the support of a lot of people at the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office has a deal called the Franklin County Deputy Sheriff's Association, and they've got what was called the Gold Star Fund. It was designed to set up to help first responders if they had, you know, any serious things go on in their life, like, you know, they got shot or they got burnt or was a car wreck or something like that. So I think I had $900. So I spent actually a little over $6,000 in my whole campaign and donated $900 to Gold Star to help my fellow officers.
Pull that off.
And, yeah.
That's definitely grassroots.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is, you know,
signs cost you. I mean, I can't even imagine, but it's got to be a bunch. You
know? Yeah. Well, you know, I had a goal. I mean, I knew what I was going to do. The year I ran for election, it was hot. I remember I went over to, that's when we had all that heat wave and all that, it was dry. I remember coming into Union, I was going to go to the fair one night, you know, and I wasn't big on going to fairs and stuff like that, campaigning. But I remember I went home, changed clothes, and at the time, this is odd, at the time I was wearing a white long sleeve shirt because I had something going on with my skin. I didn't realize, but the medication I was taking was making me photosensitive. And my arms and my hands and my legs, where I wore shorts, were covered in red blotches.
Oh my.
And luckily it wasn't on my face. So everywhere I went, 100-degree weather, I'm wearing a long sleeve white shirt. And I remember pulling to Union that night, that evening it was 107 degrees. And I went over there and I went to the fair, talked to one guy who was running for the state rep position, and I hung around the Union Fair for maybe hour and a half, 2 hours, and if I learned, in my opinion, people don't want to be bothered by politicians. They're there to have fun. So I left. And the volunteers I had, I didn't have the heart to call them out to go knock doors in towns like Union and St. Clair. So I relied heavily on word of mouth and me making a lot of public appearances, which were the teaching in law enforcement. That came in handy because then I got used to talking.
Right.
I taught women's self-defense at East Central College. That was my first teaching job. I taught over there for 6 years. And
what was that first one like?
Oh, that was horrible. That was horrible. I took the class over from Steve Elliott, my martial arts instructor, and I'd always come in on like the third night and helped him when we started doing all the techniques. And you had women in there ranging from 18 to probably in their 40s, you know, taking it was an adult education class, but it counted as a PE credit. Well, Steve always did the lecture part the first couple of nights. I was never around for that. So when he decided to give it up, he says, all right, here it's yours. So they hired me at the college to teach it, and I'd never lectured in my life. And I get up there behind this podium, and I got all my stuff laid out, and I remember looking out at the crowd, at this classroom, because I think I limited the class to 20 or 24 students at the time. I remember looking up, and all these women were sitting there like this, looking at me, and I went, oh my. And I don't think I looked up the rest of the night. And then I realized if I could do just what I'm doing with you, if I could just say something off the cuff and get them to laugh, right, there was a connection. Sure. And I think that's what it's all about. I mean, connect with somebody. Even in law enforcement, I never tried to be the overbearing John Wayne thing. I like to talk like I talk to you, try to, you know, keep things in a particular level and just be a human, you know, and shows you care. So, but yeah, I had a great time teaching those classes over at the college, and like I said, it just carried on. I mean, I didn't really have any problems with public speaking, other than the fact that, as you can tell, you don't have to ask me many questions because I'll just keep going. But that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. And I don't know, we had a great time on the campaign trail and stuff. But like I said, I couldn't bring people out. I didn't knock a door in Union.
You didn't really? Never
knocked a door in Union. And I didn't win Union. Gary, who's got a hometown boy, got 800 votes. Ted Dees got about 400, and I got about that same amount. And I'm no political science guy, but I was very confident I could carry this area because people know me, they know my family. Believe it or not, I got some Democrats. I couldn't get your dad to vote.
My dad is stubborn.
He is a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, but that's okay.
I donated your campaign, but he won't get it.
I remember he and your mom sent me a card after I won to congratulate me. But I remember, this is funny, I've seen him, he was walking up and down the driveway, and I caught him at the end of the driveway one day, and I pulled in there, and he goes, well, how are you, young feller? And I said, oh, I'm doing good. How are you? And he goes, I'm good. Where are you up to? I said, well, I'm just out driving around. I said, I guess you heard I'm running for 2nd District Commissioner. He goes, yeah, you know, I heard that. And he goes, I guess you're running on the Republican ticket. And I said, well, yeah, I am. He goes, well, doggone it, I just can't vote for you then. He goes, I've never voted for Republican in my life, and I'm not going to start now.
Excellent.
So I thought, well, there's one vote I'm not getting, you know.
Yeah.
Thank goodness I convinced Jeff and Angie Witt, 2 more Democrats, that I'm the guy for them. So they did vote. So, but yeah, it was good. Your dad's a character.
Yeah, that sounds. He told me that story.
Yeah.
But, well, then I know you're on the. You still on school board?
This is my last term.
Is it?
But
that was an interesting.
It was. I've just done 12 years on that.
12 years you were on.
I think it was 7 years. I think 7 years now I've been school board president out there. You know, unlike some of your larger school boards, I've had a great time at Spring Bluff. It's a community-based school. Everybody focuses. I mean, their motto is where what's best for kids comes first, and everybody does that. You know, now over the years I have seen it transition a little bit because you're getting people in there that weren't born and raised in that area. But the school's always pretty much been the focal point of the Spring Bluff area. And you know, Kay Bilo taught out there for years, and she was superintendent when I got on the board. She and I are very close friends. She goes to church here with me, and as a matter of fact, she's the accompanist when I sing. So
oh, really?
She's a very, very sweet lady. I got to be very close with her and her 3 girls. They're all they're just wonderful people. You know, I love her mom to death, and her dad, who's passed on, used to call me pass him in the hallway out here, and he'd call me the singing sheriff, because I, like I said, if you would have told me 12 years ago I'd be singing solos and stuff like that up here, I would have told you were nuts. You know, I could do the teaching. I got that part down. I could do that. But putting words to music, no, I wasn't.
That's right. I remember you karaokeing at our house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
And then by then I'd already started singing. And, I don't sing, I've never had a desire to sing for money. I just sing for God. That's all I sing for. And probably one of the greatest honors I ever had was I sang a song one time for Kay's dad, Don King. It was a song he had requested, and he couldn't, at the time he was sick and wasn't doing well. He couldn't even make it here for it, but I promised him I'd sing it. And so I got with the other 3 guys, because I sing solos. I also sing in a quartet here, and we sang that song, and we video all of our services here, the morning services, and he got to see it, at home from his hospital bed, and I went out there to see him before he passed, and
oh, that's nice.
He thanked me for doing that, and they actually played the video at his funeral.
Oh, that's
so
neat.
I was very honored by that, but
yeah.
that,
oh my God, yeah.
that you could touch somebody like that,
Sure.
and that's what my singing is all about. I just wanted to, it's not for Mike. It's all about God and a message. The songs I sing usually have a personal message for me, and I sing them hoping that somebody else gets that same message, and I hope it becomes a blessing to them, in their heart, and that's what I wanted to do.
Cool.
I like doing that.
That's cool. I didn't know you did that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't.
No, I tried teaching Sunday school, and I'm not as confident in teaching that. I got into music ministry. For me was easier, because you find a song that's got a meaning, whether it be to me or whether, if it's something somebody else wants to hear. If I can do it, I'll do it, and I'll do my best doing it. And that's why I was saying today, with everything I got going on in my life right now, today was a great day. I said I got here this morning a little bit early, and because I always get here early on the days I sing, and I told Kenny I was wanting to do a special, and he said that was fine, and he asked me if I wanted to lead the music, so I was going to do that. Well, I knew I had a cousin that I talked to on Facebook, Lisa Hampton, that was going to try to make it here today. Well, I got here, and a friend of Dylan's who just accepted Christ as his Savior a few months ago, I went to his baptism. He is at a different church, but he was here today. Then Lisa showed up, and then next thing you know, my brother and my sister-in-law were here. I had my Uncle Bob was here, my Uncle Wayne and Aunt Mary were here. Several people that I used to work with at the sheriff's office were here. I don't know how all they heard about it, but they showed up today when I was doing all this, and it was just very uplifting with what I got going on in my life right now, and I just sang my heart out, and give all the praise and glory to God, because it's by Him I'm able to do all this. So
that's very cool.
I like ministering to my church, and this was before I got starting next week. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to minister to them one more time before I started undergoing the treatments and stuff.
Excellent, excellent.
So,
tell you what, I gotta check something right quick before I. Yeah, I want to make sure we're still on the same page here. These things will turn on you first chance they get. Okay, cool, we're good. There's one thing I've learned about electronics: do not trust them.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on. I wanted to know, because I do not know this myself, but how did you and Christina meet?
Blind date.
Really?
Yeah. Blind date. I knew who she was since high school, because she was that, like I joked with her, I said, "You're that tall German girl with the straight hair." I mean, we hung around different groups in high school and stuff, and I don't even remember ever having a class with her in high school, but I had been married before. I had a daughter, Andrea, from my first marriage, and when she was 5 years old, I got divorced from my first wife, and that was in 1992. And I met Christina in 93. A friend of mine that I knew from Stanton, he was going out with a girl, and Leanne Macklett. I don't know if you remember her.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, Leanne and Christina are best friends. And I didn't realize that at the time, but Terry called me one day. I was headed home, and he goes, "Hey, I got somebody you ought to go out with." And I said, "Who's that?" And he told me, he said, "It's Christine Hilliard." And I said, "Christine Hilliard? I don't know any Christine Hilliard." And Christina had been married and was divorced. She was married to Don Hilliard and had my son Dylan is actually, I adopted him when he was younger.
Did you really?
Yeah. So
Oh,
I've raised him since he was 2.5.
No kidding.
Yeah. But anyway, so I'm sitting there.
None of this stuff comes up in your day-to-day.
Yeah. No, it doesn't.
If I meet you and we talk, it's always about something.
Yeah.
I never get this.
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling you. That's why I like doing this. If you find stuff out, it's like,
Yeah.
no kidding. I didn't know that.
I remember, I got to thinking, and I was talking to Terry, and I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll go out with her." And it was like later or something, I was talking to him. I said, "Well, who is she?" And she's real nice. She's a real good friend of Leanne's, and she's married, she's divorced, and all this. And I said, "What was her maiden name?" And he goes, "Juergens." I said, "Juergens? That's that tall German girl. She's taller than I am. I can't do this." But anyway, so we went to, we decided we'd go out, and I think maybe it was 92. Maybe it wasn't 93. 92, I guess it was. We started going out, and we went out. We double dated with Terry and Leanne, and we went to Roosters back when it was still open in Stanton, and went there and had a steak dinner and played pool, and we're just having a great time. Just getting to meet each other, and we left there, and I took her, went back to Leanne's house and walked her to up the sidewalk and kissed her, and off we went. And she, the rest is almost kind of history. She'd been used to being on her own for a while there, and I think I was kind of smothering her for a while. And I still give her trouble about this to this day, because it was shortly after the first of the year, I think, in '93. I can't, I would stay down at her house and stuff like that a lot. She lived down in Maramagua, and I still had my place in Stanton, and I'd stay down there. And one day I got down there, and she's like, "I can't do this anymore. Blah blah blah. You got to take your stuff and leave." Whoa! It's like, my goal was not to fall for somebody. It really wasn't, but I had, and so it kind of bothered me. So, the running joke between she and I are, I was like water on a stone. I just wore her out because I called her for about like 3 or 4 different days, beat her down, just to check, check on her and stuff. And finally, one day she left work and came over to my house in Stanton, and we talked, and drove up to Roosters and got a couple Rooster burgers, and we've been together ever since.
Did you? How long after that did you get married?
We got married. That was in.
Because I can't remember.
We got married April 29th, 1995. 95. Okay. In Ocho Rios, Jamaica. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You went away to get married. That's right.
And we'd sold her house and went down there. It was a unique experience. My first time in a country like that. But she had. I don't know whatever happened in that letter, but I was wanting to bring this up because I wanted to know. But I remember she was taking a class at East Central, I think, an English class, and she wrote a paper about our first date, and I'm not sure where that paper's at. Haven't seen it in such a long time, but it was a very, very good paper, and we've been literally soulmates and best friends ever since. Oh, that's nice. And we got married in Jamaica. I laugh about we were the only white people in our wedding. We met a couple from, I think they're from Ohio, Charles and Deborah. I don't recall their last names offhand, but we met them, and Charles gave away the bride, and Deborah was Christina's maid of honor. We got married in like a little gazebo, flower garden kind of thing, and it was kind of funny because Charles is a very dark man, and he and Christine were standing outside the hallway before you go in there, and Deborah and I were on the inside with the Reverend, or Civil Registrar of Marriages, Daniel B. Hayes, and we were standing there, and these people were walking, down the hallway, and they seen Christina dressed in her white dress and everything, and said, "Oh, is there going to be a wedding today?" And Christine goes, "Yeah, there is." And they looked at Charles, and they said, "Are you the groom?" He goes, "No, I'm the father of the bride." So it was funny. We had a great time. We had a great time down there, and so I wanted to get that in on this video because I thought that was funny. That was great.
Father of the bride.
But yeah, we've and then of course, like I said, we've been together ever since, and she's my best friend. I said I adopted Dylan. I don't remember how old Dylan was when I adopted him, but he's like I said, I've raised him since he's 2.5. I have my daughter Andrea. Right. She was born in '87. Dylan was born in 1990. Alex was born in 1995 or '96. Always forget that, Alex. Sorry. But it was. It was, that was our life. We had a blended family. My dad right now is still alive. My mom passed away in 1989, so she never got to see the stuff I got. That was good for me. So, but
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Get by.
Golly, it's hard not to get emotional sometimes.
I know. I don't ever tell anybody that, but you start getting down to that nitty gritty. It really is. Yeah. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with it because everybody does.
Right.
Let's see. About through your kids and everything. Okay. Let's see. So, come to the fun part here. What's it? And you're the same age as me, so
yes,
you won't be able to BS me on this. I mean, what does becoming older mean to you? I mean, I know what it means to me. Like I said, we're the same age. A lot of things change. So give me kind of a slant on that.
Damon, for a long time, I never thought I'd reach this age. I just didn't. I mean, I never seen myself, and even up to a few weeks ago, I thought, man, I don't think I could ever retire because I like to be involved in something all the time. And that's, I thought when I ever retire from either law enforcement or now politics, I'm going to have to find something else to do because I don't think I could stay home as long as Christina's working. And, I mean, it'd be great if we were both retired at the same time and could go do stuff, but I just never could see it. And as far as old age, I thought, I don't know what exactly old age is. Right now, I don't feel bad. But as you know, when I'm gonna go ahead and put this in here, because it is part of it. But
absolutely.
Like I said, January 23rd of this year, I was diagnosed as having cancer, and that changed a lot. That changes your whole perspective on things, So now, it's February the 9th. So I've come to grips with it. I've seen a couple of doctors, seen an oncologist, and I have stage 3 esophageal cancer, and tomorrow I go in to get a port put in and start chemotherapy and radiation treatments. And the oncologist, gave me some good news. He's thinking that we can maybe do something with this. It all depends on how my body responds, and if they can kill the cancer that I have and shrink it, maybe I can have surgery to remove it. That's my best option right now. So anymore, I don't really think about old age. I just think about day to day, and that's why this service here at church this morning was so special to me. Because like I said, the ministry, my music ministry was touching people, with God's word that's was going to be my old age, because I love to sing, I really do. And, anything that can help the furtherance of God's kingdom, that's what I wanted to do. But, part of the words are the songs over there on paper, because Kenny can't remember the words. But, part of the words go, to the doom and gloom, life's a waiting room for the blow that'll do us all in. I can't sympathize when before my eyes is a hope shining bright as day. And I believe that. I believe that with all my heart. And I believe whatever God has in store, I mean, He has a plan, and His plan's a perfect plan. And I'm just not privy to that. I don't know. So right now, I'm at a point where I tend to look at things a whole lot differently than what I did January 22nd. Because like I said, the 23rd was a game changer. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what He's got in store for me, but I'm going to fight this as best I can with God's help, and I know He uses doctors and lawyers to help people, and sometimes, we're just not meant to know.
Sure.
And so I take it day by day. So I never thought I have other health issues. I mean, I've had AFib since 1990, and then found out in 2007 I had 3 holes in my heart. One PFO, everybody has that where you have a hole in your heart and it closes as you get older.
Oh, gotcha. Right.
And then I had what's called 2 ASDs, atrial septal defects, and I had a procedure done in 2007 where they went in and they woke me up halfway through it because they didn't find the second one until they did it. The second, but they put implants in my heart to close those holes, hoping that would help the AFib. Well, I still have AFib, but I can, my heart rate is pretty much regular, but it's, I say regular as far as beat wise, but it's an irregular beat. But I take medicine for it, and I always thought, you know, that was going to get me. But when I got this other diagnosis of the cancer, that was totally different. And
yeah, out of left field too.
oh, it was because I thought, you know, you're with AFib, you're 5 times more likely to have a stroke than somebody without AFib. And so you thought, oh, well, he's got this.
Yeah, I got this going.
Yeah, he's got this marked out for me. I know how I'm going to go. Well, then you don't. And then you hear when you hear cancer, it's scary. And you have a whole new appreciation for those who have had it before you, you know, and a whole new outlook on those who are going to get it. You know?
Right.
I don't feel sorry for myself. I haven't asked God why, because, you know, I firmly believe that, you know, we're all sinners. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. It says so in the book of Romans. And, but I'm confident in my salvation. I accepted Christ 12 years ago here and walked that aisle right back there. And I haven't looked back since. So, you know, when I was talking to my pastor, Charles Eidelman, I asked him, I said, we were talking, and he said one of the most profound things he ever heard was from a parishioner one time. And instead of asking God, why her, she said, why not me? You know, because we all have it common. We all have a death sentence. We just don't know when.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure I'm going to die of cancer. I may get hit by a Mack truck leaving here. I don't know.
Yeah,
you know, so, you know, all I know is you know, it's all in God's hands. He has a plan. I'll just take it day by day now to see how it goes. And, you know, like I said, I'm going to make some lifestyle changes. I want to refocus, because there are some things, like I told you earlier in this interview, that I regret that I didn't do. I want to spend more time, more quality time with my family, as opposed to just doing things for my family. Try to make sure everything gets done. I'll still help them any which way I can. I will, but you know, I want to do things with them that I should have done before, and some of it you couldn't do because of money. But you know, do I have regrets? No. Not really. I mean, I wish I would have
changed anything.
No, not really. I mean, I can't. I mean, that was my life. I mean, sometimes I wish I would have taken time. You know, like the old "Cats in the Cradle" song.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of those ones. It's like I want time with my kids and my wife and move on. You know, they've always been the most important things in my life. So,
Yeah, and you can't knock yourself.
No.
Don't beat yourself up over it, because I mean, if you
you can't.
had twice as much time, you'd want 3 times as much.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
You know.
It just doesn't. It doesn't work. You try to do things to get by. You know,
exactly.
and you know. But what I would tell my kids is to weigh things out carefully. You know, if I could turn the clock back, I wouldn't have built as big a house as I built, because I don't. Yeah, is it nice? Absolutely. Do I love it? Absolutely. But I would rather have a smaller home that was paid for, because all I need is a roof over our heads. You know, pay for it and go out and enjoy life. Enjoy time with your family while you can do that. Enjoy time with your spouse. And don't worry about all the material things here, because none of it counts.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I agree.
None of it counts for anything when you get right down to it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, this may sound stupid, but I mean, sometimes a life-changing, altering thing like this gives you that perspective, because you would have never probably thought that, and you would have never known under what terms that was.
Right.
If this hadn't happened. So I mean, you know.
Well, you get your, you know, I was to a point, you know, I mean, I've been in office 13 months, and I've been doing, I think, pretty well. You know, I know the county employees have thought a lot of me. I've been told by a couple that I'm the best commissioner that they've had in years.
That's quite a compliment.
It is. But you know, it's just ironic. You know, you finally get to a point in your life where I don't have to work any more part-time jobs. I've been focused on one job, and then bam, out of left field comes cancer. But, you know, God has a plan. And again, I don't know what it is. And, you know, this may be just a bump in the road for me. I don't know. You know, only He knows that. And I'll just see where it takes me. I'll just have to see where it takes me.
Well, hang on just one second. Something I need to do right quick. I need a shot from a long ways off.
Oh. Yeah, okay.
And I'll use a timer too, because you can't really tell what you're saying, you know, so I can throw it in there. Okay, yeah. I just got a couple more, Michael.
Okay.
And I guess the biggie, and this is always a hard one for everybody to get out, is are there any words of wisdom you'd like to pass along to your family? And I don't mean that because you've got cancer. I ask this to everyone.
Oh, I know. That's no problem. No, and
You know.
what I said earlier about make time for your family. Try to live within your means. Don't try to impress anybody with big fancy houses or cars or anything like that, because really none of it's that important. What's important is the time that you can spend with each other. You know, the memories.
Yeah.
You know, the golden rule is doing to others as you have them doing to you, and I think that's most appropriate. I mean, I've always prided myself on, you know, yes ma'am, yes sir, no ma'am, no sir. You know, opening doors for people.
Absolutely.
Please, thank you. Just being kind to others. Yeah. You know, you'll find people that, you know, maybe sometimes your words are wasted on, but that's the way I am. You know, and I think a lot of that has gotten me a long way in life. I really do. Just being decent to people, you know, and trying to be honest with them. You know, it's you know,
well, it's a rare thing for a politician, I'll tell you right now.
It is, but I can't, you know, and that was part of my thing. That's what I was going to try. I mean, I'm not going to, you know, I just tell them as it is. You know, they will call up, want something, want a road paper. We don't have any money. You know, I mean, that's just as long and short of it. I have my viewpoints on how things are done, and you know, have I second guessed the opinions? Yeah, but I don't think I've ever changed any, you know, since I've been in office. But you know, I'm not gonna lie to people. I mean, it's not in my nature to do that. I don't want that to be part of. I don't want that to be how I'm remembered. You know, I've been really, you know, blessed my entire life with everything I've had and everything that's went on in my life. You know, and even before I was saved. I think the Lord had a plan for me even then. But, you know, as far as words of wisdom, just treat each other with love and kindness, and try to be a little more tolerant than what I am. Because I guess part of me with what I did for so long with my career, I was very discipline-oriented with my kids. You know, I mean, I probably corrected. I guess part of me thinks I just forgot what it was like to be a kid. Right. You know, so I was probably harder on them because I seen what happens to the kids that didn't have structure, right. Didn't have parenting in their life, and I was maybe a little too rough. I don't regret it. I have great kids. Mine all turned out great. I just want them to be more independent.
Well, and a friend of mine, I've heard this saying, and it strikes true. You know, parents take too much credit when things go right, and too much of the blame when things go wrong.
Yeah.
Kids are kids.
Yeah.
I mean, they've changed the rules on the kids. You remember when we were kids?
Yeah.
Rules were completely different than they are I mean, drinking and all that. I mean, that was kind of just a.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do it, but
You shouldn't do it, but we
anyway.
did.
You get caught, they just kind of set you aside. Now it's a major offense. Things have changed.
Oh, yeah.
They really have.
Yeah.
And you're right. You gotta walk straight and narrow most of the time, because it has. It's gotten very serious now.
Yeah.
But I always tell anybody that'll listen, they've changed the rules. It's the same kids.
Yeah. 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 But the thing, the thing is, and I hope and I pray that what they didn't learn from me, that they'll learn from the Word of God. Because all your answers are in the Bible if you just take time to look for them. They may not be the answers you want, but they're God's answers, and there's what God wants for you in your life. And like I said, I pray every night since I've gotten this cancer diagnosis that regardless of what happens, I want my family tighter. My wife and kids tighter. And if I'm in the picture, I want us closer. I want to, because you take a blended family, like I said, my daughter from my previous marriage, Dylan from Christina's previous marriage, Alex from our marriage, mine and Christina's marriage, it doesn't always work all that well. So I'm hoping and praying that this is part of what God has in mind for all this, is that if nothing else comes of this, that it brings my family closer together. And so they need to be there for each other. And like I said, I would be there for them. And I fully intend, and if everything works out well, I'll still be there for them.
That's very good.
Because that's what you got. You got family.
At the end of the day, that's all there is.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. Well, Mike, thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, David. I appreciate this. I really do.
No problem. Let's see. Back out a little bit here. Get me and you in it. You can start your left just a little bit. There we go. Yeah. There, no, that's good right there, Mike. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So let him know I'm the guy doing it. So.
And I appreciate it. I'm the guy who appreciates it. Love you.
Love you too. Okay. Cool, Mike. Very good.